Today, we're going to unpack the story of a book that for centuries was a massive deal, like second only to the Bible in its influence. But this isn't just a story about a book. It's a story about how something truly profound can be forged in the darkest of places, a prison dungeon. So, just to give you a sense of its impact, look at this. The Pilgrims' Progress has been translated into over 200 languages. I mean, think about that for a second. That's not just popular, that is a truly staggering global reach. This story has connected with people all over the world for hundreds of years. And this quote really drives the point home. For more than 200 years, if you walked into certain households, this book was right there next to the Bible in terms of importance. It wasn't just some bestseller. No, this was a foundational text, a piece of the cultural bedrock. Which, of course, makes you wonder who in the world could write something like this? I mean, who is the genius behind a masterpiece that changes the world? You'd probably guess, some university scholar, right? Or maybe a literary aristocrat with a fancy library and tons of free time. But the real answer? Well, it's going to blow you away. The author was a poor, uneducated metal worker, and he wrote it from inside a prison cell. Yeah, his name was John Bunyan, and he wasn't a writer by trade. He was a tinker, a guy who mended pots and pans. He had no theological degrees, no formal training in literature, so how does a guy like that create a classic that would stand the test of time? Well, the answer, strange as it sounds, is found in his suffering. And his life, man, it was just one tragedy after another. When he was just 15, his mom and his sister died within a month of each other. The next year, he's drafted into a civil war. Later, he marries, and his first daughter, Mary, is born blind. Then his first wife dies, leaving him a young widower with 4 little kids. And just when you think it can't get any worse, he's thrown in prison for the crime of preaching without a state license. He was in there for 12 long years. So what do you do with all that pain? Well, Bunyan channeled it. He used this really clever literary tool called an allegory. Basically, it's a story where everything on the surface, the characters, the places, the events, they all stand for something else, something deeper. It's all about that double meaning. And here's what's so brilliant about it. He didn't just make up a fantasy world out of thin air. Nope. He took the raw, painful stuff from his own life, all that grief, all that doubt, the feeling of being trapped, and he wove them right into the story. They became the famous obstacles that his main character, a man named Christian, has to overcome on his journey. The book is in a way a direct reflection of his own soul's journey through some really dark times. And you can see the parallels so clearly here. Those long periods where he felt profound spiritual doubt. In the book, that's the slough of despond, this horrible swamp that almost swallows the hero whole. That crushing feeling of hopelessness, he turned that into a literal monster, a terrifying giant named Despair. And those 12 years he spent locked away in a cold, dark jail cell, well, that became the dreaded dungeon of Doubting Castle. It's incredible, right? So it all comes to a head in that dungeon. Our hero, Christian, is at rock bottom. I mean, he's been captured by giant despair, he's been beaten, he's just left there to rot. He has lost all hope, and he says these words just full of regret. And the story just keeps piling it on. The giant's wife, whose name is Diffidence, which basically means doubt or distrust, she tells him to be even more merciless. It's this perfect, chilling picture of how despair and doubt team up to completely crush your spirit. But then, right at the absolute darkest moment, when all seems lost, Christian has this sudden realization. He says this line, "A key. A key he had the whole time, right there in his pocket, or for Bunyan, in his heart. And the key is called promise." Okay, so this is the whole point, isn't it? If the dungeon in the story was Bunyan's real-life jail cell, then what was his key? What was the promise that unlocked the doors of his own despair during those 12 years? For John Bunyan, that key was the promises he found in the Bible. Get this, his entire library in prison consisted of just 2 books, a Bible and a concordance. That's it. So he just soaked himself in scripture, hiding it in his heart so he could access it when all hope seemed lost. The great preacher Charles Spurgeon famously said that Bunyan was so filled with the Bible that if you were to prick him anywhere, his blood is bibline. And that right there is why this book has lasted for over 300 years. It's not just a clever allegory, it's a roadmap for the human soul. a guide for navigating life's darkest valleys, written with the ink of authentic suffering by a man who found his way through. So it leaves us with this question, a question that transcends time and religion. When you find yourself trapped in your own version of Doubting Castle, staring down your own giant despair, what is the key you've hidden in your heart?